Alright, here's one of my radius rods. I had a friend cut it and open it up by 35 millimeters and then weld a sleeve over it to put it back together. So that should be long enough to bolt onto my control arm now. He did the same thing with the tie rods. You can see a tie rod here has been cut, lengthened, sleeved. So now the tie rods reach to the tie rod ends and have plenty of adjustment room to set the toe, which is perfect. He did the same thing with the steering shaft. It's already bolted up. It works just perfectly. And you remember I had a problem with the flexible brake hose wasn't long enough. So I had another friend loan me one of his old brake hoses from his Legacy Turbo. And I had used it for a test fit. It bolts up on both ends. And it's about 2 inches longer than the original brake hose, which is just right. It's just long enough to reach now and allow the wheel to flex and travel and steer. So that solves that problem too. Okay, let me show you a little something. So the radius rod, I mentioned I had it lengthened so that it can get to these bolts on the control arm. However, what I didn't mention is now that the control arm is lowered and the radius rod mounting point isn't, they meet at an angle, so they don't really want to bolt up very well. So the thing that I decided to do to try to fix this is to put a curvature in the radius rod, a little bend in it. And here's one that I've been bending on. And you can see that it's fairly close. It'll draw together under the force of the bolts. So, see that thing next to the other one? So how the heck did I bend a solid rod like that? Well, let me show you the radius rod bending jig. Alright, the radius rod bending jig. You ready for this? Take your radius rod, put a pipe on one end, set it on a log. Put a pipe on the other end, set it on another log. Then you stand on it, bounce up and down. And look at that. Radius rod bolted to control arm. I had to oblong the holes in the control arm slightly, but it's all bolted up now. This is a complete front suspension side. Now it's just the other side to go. So I mentioned that we needed to mount the shifter stabilizer, and there wasn't a mount for that on the BRAT. But turns out we found this little stud sticking out just behind the shifter hole, and if you flex the stabilizer over, it actually bolts right onto it. So, stabilizer mounted.
Here's the stupid way to do it.
How much of a curve do you need?
What's that?
How much of a curve do you need?
Not much. This'll do it.
And there we have our carrier bearing mount. It's mounted to the 2 bolts on the carrier bearing and then just bolted through the floor pan. Okay, for a radiator. So once upon a time I had the stock 91 Legacy radiator in here. And it actually does fit in here, contrary to what I'd read online. The only change I had to make was I moved this wiring harness here up into here and then supported the radiator down low instead of off of this like it was stock. So the first gen Legacy radiator does fit in here. However, you can see I had a fight with the tree, which I won by the way, but the radiator does not fit in here now anymore. What I could do is just pull it back out to make space. But what I want in here is I want more room generally for the radiator because plans I may have for the future. So I have another idea.